Rev up your engines! Today I'm going to talk about when is the best time to buy a used car. Now, of course, buying a used car is the best way to save money. I bought nothing but used cars. There's one thing in common with all of my used cars. All three that I now presently have, I bought them when I did not need another car. Now you might think that sounds really stupid, but actually it's the absolute best way to buy a used car. As the saying goes, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Take my 94 Celica. I bought it for $300. My wife didn't need a car. She had a nice Toyota Chrysler. I didn't need a car. I had an unbeatable 1981 Toyota Corolla SR5 hatchback. Granted, the thing was pushing 30 years old. But when I asked my customer, well, what are you going to do with your old Celica? She said, oh, I don't want it anymore because I got an Avalon. And the kids didn't want the Celica because the bumper was all orange and this fender was bashed in. She'd had the car painted years before at one of those high school trade things where they paint your car for free, you buy the paint. They didn't know how to paint the plastic bumper, so all the paint came off and showed the orange underneath, and she had run into something with the right front fender, so that was bashed in. So I paid $300, replaced the fender, and then had the whole car painted at one of those places that'll paint a car for $350. Yeah, not the greatest paint job in the world. I mean, you can see when you look closely, some of the paint's chipping off up here, but really, I couldn't resist that deal. So I bought the Celica, fixed it, and then sold my old Toyota Corolla SR5 hatchback to a customer who blew the engine up on her Ford. And the same story holds true for my wife's beautiful Lexus. It's 20 years old now. Doesn't look it. I only paid $3,000 because the customer's father died. He and his wife never had kids. He had a Mercedes, she had a Lexus SUV. They didn't need another car, so I got it for $3,000. Did not need another car, but what a deal. Now the odds of getting a deal like that are slim to none if you got a car that fell apart, doesn't run anymore, and you gotta rush into buying another car. That's the worst way to buy a used car. Do not be in a hurry. Plan ahead as much as you can. You find a good deal, jump on it. Because when you're looking for used cars and you gotta buy it now, there's good cars out there, but often you'll way overpay for a used one if you're in a hurry, because the good ones, they generally go pretty fast today, especially with coronavirus. I've seen customers have to overpay because they got in a bidding war when they got to somebody's house. If it was a Toyota, people would offer $400 more than the other person. Made the price get higher. You don't want to get involved in a bidding war. And if you are buying, say, at a car dealership, realize one thing. They're just like most people. They don't actually own the cars on the lot. They're paying notes, just like you. They're paying a bank note for the cars on their lot. And just like you, they don't want to pay a note if they don't have to. So if the note is due at the end of the month or the beginning of the month, they would much rather sell the car to you than you can start paying a note. I'm not a financial guy, so I didn't know this for quite some time, but I found out years ago in Houston when there was a new Porsche dealer. And the economy went, and the Porsche dealer went out of business. Well, the banks that loaned the money for all these Porsches thought, okay, well, we'll take the cars. Well, little did they know that they had been fooled by the guy who ran the Porsche dealership. It turned out that the Porsche dealer had suckered 5 different banks for loaning money for the Porsches. So when they went bankrupt, each Porsche was owned by 5 different banks. So they only got 20% of their money back. So the dealership itself, it went bankrupt. And where did the money go? Who knows? I just know that each bank lost 80% of their money in the deal. So since it is borrowed money, take advantage of that knowledge yourself. They're just holding on the car before they sell it to somebody else. They have pressure to sell these cars. And the longer an old car sits on the lot, 1, the less money they're going to get for it, and 2, they have to keep paying that note. Now let's say you're buying a new car instead of a used car. If you buy the previous year's model, that means it's been sitting a while. The new 2021s are out. They got 2020s left lying around. Well, you know, they've been sitting around because they're last year's model. You can often get a better price on that. But getting back to used cars, Christmas time, the holidays, is the best time to buy a used car. anytime from before Christmas till a couple weeks after New Year's. If you didn't spend all your money on presents and drink, that's the time to buy a used car. It's not just the holiday season, it's also the cold. If you know anything about house real estate, you get good deals in the winter. Nobody generally wants to buy a house in the winter, but just like cars, when spring comes and the convertible tops go down, the prices of cars and houses both go up. And that just makes financial sense in any situation. We live in a capitalist society. When it's a seller's market, houses are flying off, cars are flying off, you're gonna have to pay more. But when it's a buyer's market, you're gonna pay less. Before Christmas, middle of January, all that time, it is a buyer's market, let me tell you. So cars are just like the stock market. You really want to be buying when other people are selling, but then selling when other people are buying and the price goes up. Now, when you are buying a used car, realize one prime thing, and that's if you're going to finance with the person selling you the vehicle, you're gonna overpay. That's just how it works. Years ago, I had two lady customers. Both of them bought Toyota Corolla station wagons. One had good credit, and she borrowed the money from her credit union and bought a used Corolla station wagon for $3,000 that had 95,000 miles on it. She did not borrow the money from the car lot. She paid them cash with money from her credit union. That same week, another lady who had bad credit bought a Toyota Corolla station wagon, but it had 80,000 miles more. It had like 150 or 60, whatever. I just remember it was 80,000 miles more than the other car had. She paid $8,000 for that car. She had bad credit. She financed it through the used car lot. She paid almost 3 times as much for a car that had about twice the mileage on it. Doesn't make any sense? Well, that has to do with bad credit too, so. But it's giving you an example. You do not want to borrow money from the person who's selling you the car. And it also illustrates something else a lot of people don't understand these days. Cash is still king. A lot of people look at those stupid book values of used cars, and they'll try to sell a used car for the book value. Now, in the United States, at least, the book values are artificially inflated because the people who own the companies that make the book value are now the companies that sell the most used cars. So it's kind of a farce anyways. But you go to a private individual, say they want 10 grand for a used car, they'll say, well, that's what the dealers get. Then you say, okay, the dealer was going to charge me $199 a month. Will you do that? Oh, of course, they're not going to finance the car. So you say, I'm going to pay a lot less because I got to pay cash to you. Doesn't matter that you're borrowing it from someplace else. You're paying them cash. That is why it's often a good idea to buy from private individuals. Everybody knows cash is hard to come up with. You got good credit, you can borrow money somewhere else. Do that. Don't go and finance it at a place because you're going to overpay the finance. As is the case with these inflated, made-up book values. You're going to pay way too much for the car. You just figure out how much money you're paying in the long run. I remember when I was young, they used to say, you buy this car, you get a free TV. Now, of course you didn't get a free TV. They just took the price of the TV and they added it to each of the monthly payments to pay for the TV. You got to figure out how much money are you paying over the course of time, not just what your monthly payment is. Hence, if you borrow the money from a credit union or something, you know how much money you spent. You give the cash, and the deal with that other company you're buying it from, that's all gone now. And all you have to deal with is pay back your monthly note, which is exactly what you know it's going to be, with no surprises. But of course, if you're like me and you're always on the lookout for deals, when something like this shows up for 3 grand with 65,000 miles, you just say, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, and you buy that thing. You never know when there's some kind of a deal coming out. Somebody joins the army. Maybe somebody old can't drive anymore. Guy back in Niagara Falls bought my 93-year-old mother's Toyota Corolla. Yeah, it was 14 years old, but it only had 70,000 miles on it. Guy got a heck of a deal for $3,000. It was back in Niagara Falls, where it's an economically depressed area and people don't have much money, so the prices of stuff are often lower there when you paid cash, and the guy did pay cash for the car. So now you realize, yeah, you can save money buying a used car, but with all this information, you can save a lot more and get a much better deal if you follow all these practices. And of course, make sure you buy a quality vehicle, like this almost 20-year-old Lexus made in Japan, where the paint still shines and the engine still runs like a top. And remember, patience and a wise pocketbook pays off in the long run. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, Remember to ring that bell.